Ferrari's performance in 2025 Formula One preseason testing has raised many questions. While most fans and analysts agree that McLaren looked like the team to beat and Racing Bulls were at the back of the grid, Ferrari's real pace remains uncertain. This script is all about understanding what Ferrari was really up to during testing and whether they were hiding their true potential. To answer that, we will break down their entire testing program from day 1 to day 3. Look at driver feedback, team strategies, telemetry and race simulations. Let's begin by talking about Ferrari's overall goal during the 3 days of testing. The key thing to understand is that Ferrari brought a radically new car to the test, the SF-25. One of the most important changes was the switch from a push rod to a pull rod front suspension. This is a big change because it affects the mechanical platform of the car in a major way. With such a new layout, Ferrari was not focused on outright speed or showing off lap times. Their goal was to learn about how the new platform works. They needed to gather data, understand how to set up the car and explore how the car responds to different adjustments. This isn't just speculation. A trusted motorsport publication with good sources inside Ferrari reported that the team was not aiming for performance during the test. Their main objective was to experiment with various setups to learn about the SF-25's behavior. This matches what we saw on track. For example, on day 1, Ferrari ran a medium downforce rear wing, even though Bahrain is a high downforce circuit. That suggests they weren't trying to set quick laps, but were focused on learning. Lewis Hamilton, who has joined Ferrari for the 2025 season, also confirmed this approach in interviews. He mentioned that on day 1 he wasn't making any setup changes. The team was just working through a run plan and collecting information. It wasn't until day 2 that Hamilton began having more input on the setup, which shows how the team's focus gradually shifted towards understanding the car rather than chasing lap times. Across the 3 days of testing, Ferrari worked through a wide range of setups. They started with an extremely understeering setup, where the front of the car would not turn into the corners properly. You could see this on the onboard footage. The drivers were struggling to rotate the car, and it didn't look comfortable to drive. But by day 2, Ferrari had changed the setup significantly. The car became more responsive, more oversteery, and looked much easier to handle. Hamilton even set one of the fastest laps of the day during the morning session. That's a big improvement in just 24 hours. It shows that Ferrari was learning quickly. They were analyzing data overnight, making setup changes, and coming back stronger the next day. The difference between day 1 and day 2 was huge, and it shows the progress Ferrari made in a short amount of time. But lap times don't always tell the full story. What really matters in Formula One is race pace, how the car performs over a long run. On day 2, Ferrari ran a race simulation with Charles Leclerc in the evening session. At the same time, both McLaren and Mercedes were also running their own race simulations. That gave us a rare chance to directly compare all 3 teams under similar conditions. The results were interesting. Ferrari was about 0.4 of a second slower per lap than McLaren. That might sound like a lot, but it's important to put it into context. First, McLaren has been using a pull rod suspension for years, so they already understand how to get the most out of that setup. Ferrari is just starting out with this new system, so they are still learning. Second, there are reports that Ferrari was running a heavier fuel load during the race simulation. That would naturally make their lap times slower. Third, Ferrari may not have been using their final race setup. They were still testing and trying different settings. Some even believe Ferrari was sandbagging, holding back their real pace on purpose. While there's no solid proof of that, rumors from inside the paddock suggest that other teams like Mercedes and McLaren suspect Ferrari isn't showing everything they have. Again, that's just a rumor, but it adds to the mystery around Ferrari's testing program. Now let's take a closer look at what Ferrari did each day. On day 1, Ferrari started with a setup that created a lot of understeer. The drivers couldn't get the car to turn in sharply, and it was clear they were having a hard time. The lap times reflected that. Hamilton's best lap was in the 1:31 range, which was far off the pace. But again, Ferrari wasn't focused on lap times. They were gathering data on how the car behaves with different setups. By day 2, things improved a lot. Hamilton's best lap dropped to the low 129s, and the car looked much better on track. It was more responsive and looked easier to drive. That's because Ferrari made overnight setup changes. They dialed out the understeer and moved to a setup that gave the drivers more confidence. This kind of progress is exactly what testing is for. Then came the race simulation with Leclerc in the evening. As mentioned earlier, Ferrari was about 0.4 per lap slower than McLaren, but when you factor in the heavier fuel load and the unfamiliar setup, that gap doesn't look so bad. It shows that Ferrari has a solid foundation, and once they unlock the full potential of the SF-25, they could be much closer to the front. On day 3, Ferrari continued their data collection. They tried even more setup changes and focused on learning how the car behaves in different situations. There wasn't a major performance run like on day 2, but the work they did was still valuable. The more data they collect now, the better prepared they'll be for the first race in Melbourne. So where does Ferrari really stand going into the 2025 season? Based on everything we've seen, there are 2 possible scenarios. In the first scenario, Ferrari is the second fastest team behind McLaren. That would mean they've been hiding their true pace, running with more fuel, and focusing only on data collection. In this case, once they go all out in Melbourne, they could be very competitive. In the second scenario, Ferrari is the third fastest team, behind both McLaren and Mercedes. That would mean they still have work to do in understanding the SF-25 and finding the right setup. If that's the case, the next 2 weeks will be crucial. They'll need to go through all the data from testing, find the best setup, and bring everything together for the first race. There's reason to be optimistic, though. Ferrari made big improvements between day 1 and day 2. They showed that the SF-25 has potential, and they have 2 talented drivers who can get the most out of the car. If the team can find the sweet spot in the setup, they could be a real threat. Another positive sign is that Ferrari didn't face any major reliability issues during testing. That's important because it means they were able to complete their full run plan each day. The more laps you run, the more data you get, and the better prepared you are for the season. It's also worth noting that different tracks favor different cars. Melbourne has a mix of slow and medium-speed corners, which could suit Ferrari's car better than Bahrain. If they find the right setup, they could surprise everyone at the season opener. So, to sum it all up, Ferrari's true pace is still a mystery. They spent pre-season testing learning about their new car, the SF-25, and didn't focus on outright speed. But the signs are encouraging. They made progress each day, showed flashes of performance, and completed valuable race simulations. Whether they are the second or third fastest team will depend on how much they can improve before the first race. But one thing is clear, Ferrari has a solid foundation to build on, and with more time they could become serious contenders in the 2025 season. The next few weeks will be all about preparation. Ferrari needs to go through every piece of data, find the best setup, and get ready to fight in Melbourne. The season is just beginning and there's still a lot to play for. With Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc behind the wheel and a promising car in the SF-25, Ferrari fans have every reason to be excited about what's to come.